Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith back with another Classic Fight Club. This time, GSP's toughest fight. It is not clickbait. Somebody actually suggested I use clickbait. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know exactly what that is. I don't know what title would get people to click on it. Anyway, this is not clickbait. It was GSP gave an interview a while back, a long time ago, where he was asked about the toughest fight of his career. And he named, with all the names he fought, Wildman Denny. Now, why his fight against Wildman Denny was his toughest, I will go into in a minute. Either you don't know who Wildman Denny is, or you're a hardcore fan and you do know, and you're wondering why the greatest fighter of all time would have trouble with Wildman Denny. So, a little background on Thomas Wildman Denny. Pretty much a local hero in Southern California. He lived out in Hemet, which is in the high desert of Southern California, where a lot of fights, when MMA wasn't sanctioned, they would have them on tribal land out there. So that's where he lived. So he fought at so many Gladiator Challenge, King of the Cage, Soboba Casino. You almost always saw Wildman Denny fighting. And he sold hundreds of tickets to these events. Really popular. Everybody would be chanting for him whenever he fought. Experienced, but never beat a next level guy ever. And he had a lot of opportunities. He lost to Jutaro Nakao, Eve Edwards, Bang Ludwig, Joe Stevenson, Pat Miletich, Nick Diaz. I mean, every John Alessio, Chris Brennan, everybody who was a UFC vet who could have maybe beating that guy would have really advanced his career. He never got over that hump. Basically stayed a local sensation his entire career. Now he's coaching, very nice guy. But he went up to Canada at UCC 12, January 25th, 2003 to fight GSP. So why was this fight hard? You're going to find out in a minute. I'll talk about it as we go over it. The commentary is in French because it's in Quebec. So let's see here. Wildman Denny versus Georges St. Pierre. This is UCC 12, January 25th, 2003. The main event was Dwayne Ludwig versus Jens Pulver. Mark Hominick fought on this card. Who else? David Loazo, Jason Black beat John Alessio. Jason Black, another local guy who unfortunately never got to the next level. But one of the things about Wildman Denny is he really wasn't welterweight sized. He fought the bulk of his career at welterweight, but as you can see, GSP is just bigger. GSP is, even in 2003, when he first started his career, was a big welterweight. A lot of weight cutting. So why is this fight so hard? GSP had the flu. So you might be asking yourselves, how could you get the flu past the pre-fight medical check? Well, there were no pre-fight medical checks in 2003, and if you did get one, they were cursory, meaning I got maybe a couple in my whole career fighting at this time, and it was literally, I think mine was stand on one foot and touch your nose. And I did this, and they went, okay, you're good, get in there. They didn't check your temperature. They didn't do anything. So unless you were bleeding out of your eyes and vomiting blood in front of the doctor, you were fine. So apparently GSP has the flu, and he feels horrible during this fight. So it took all he had just to get in the ring. And you can see his performance here. This is his fourth professional fight. And you can see the things that would make a GSP great. Good takedown, not great yet, but a great pressure pass. That's one thing GSP had that I think a lot of people underappreciate. Everybody talks about his takedown, which was phenomenal, especially considering he didn't grow up wrestling. It's insane. This guy took down guys like Josh Koscheck and John Fitch, and those guys spent their whole life wrestling, and GSP took him down easily. His pressure pass was really amazing. If you're wondering what that is on his back, because he doesn't have any tattoos, is goldenpalace.com. Was a website back then. What famous boxer did it? Oh, come on. B-Hop, Bernard Hopkins, against... I want to say Felix Trinidad, he had that on his back. But they would pay you to like write it on your back in like grease, like this grease pen or whatever, and you would fight with it. So a lot of combat guys back then, sometimes you'll see, what's that on their back? It's goldenpalace.com. Don't know if it exists anymore, but fighters could do that back then. You could write something on your back, and apparently they didn't care. So easily passes the guard of Wildman Denny, putting that famous pressure on him. I once got to grapple with Faraz Zahabi the TriStar coach, the longtime coach of GSP, and he had the most disengaging jiu-jitsu style I've ever dealt with in my life. Meaning you try to put weight on Firas Zahabi, and he would just frame up and like move out and get up. We must have restarted like 10 times. And I was asking him about it later. Like, you don't really like, you kind of keep pressure off you rather than accept the pressure and go for submission or sweep or something. He goes, that's from rolling with George all the time. George puts so much pressure on you. You have to learn to get around that or else you're screwed. Now you can see in this promotion, knees are legal on the ground. And so he's going to town with them. Rules were all over the place back then. Some events you could knee a grounded opponent to the head. Some you couldn't. Some you could use elbows. Some you couldn't. So apparently in this one you could knee to the head. Good side control. Wildman Denny, comparatively well-rounded. Not spectacular at any one thing. But you'll see in this fight the difficulty he tended to have is he was a front runner. When it was going well, he tended to do well. When he was in bad positions, as you can see here, he doesn't have a lot of tactical answers for GSP. He doesn't have the subtle little hip things that really protect you in a time like this. Doesn't have phenomenal jiu-jitsu. And GSP, once again, only his fourth fight, but man, he knew how to put pressure on you. His first win in the UFC, his first fight in the UFC, period, Karo Parisian, who was a killer. That was his UFC debut was against Karo Parisian. And he won a decision in that fight. So, in Canada, he also beat Dave Strasser, Pete Spratt. Both those guys UFC veterans. Weren't standouts in the UFC, but UFC veterans at least. His first fight was against Ivan Menjivar. If you know who that is, that should make you laugh because Menjivar is like a natural 35er, 45er. That was GSP's first win. That's another thing that happened back in the day. You kind of took fights at whatever weight class you could get one. And so a lot of light fighters just had to fight giants. So this first round is GSP just shellacking Wildman Denny. But you can see, normally, if GSP gets in this position and can land knees like he's kneeing, he would just go to town and knock you out. I think you can see that he doesn't have a lot of energy. He's trying to spend it a bit conservatively. Not a great Americana attempt here in key lock. This is something GSP would get much better at later in his career. But you want to settle your weight down on a key lock. But that's the end of round one. GSP, the bigger guy, throwing big punches. Once again, excellent timing on the takedown. High crotch, taking him to his hip. You can see the things that would develop later. And he's good at these things, and he would master them later. So far, Wildman Denny, no real answer. But keep in mind, GSP is running out of gas. He's very, very ill. He's sick. So he goes back to his corner in round one. And according to the interview I read, he literally said, I can't keep going. I can't keep going, guys. Just throw in the towel. And his coach, brilliant move that I remembered, said, okay, go out there, throw a high kick. And you see GSP's breathing really heavily. Normally, GSP had great cardio. This wouldn't be an issue. He said, throw a high kick. After you throw the high kick, tap and I'll throw the towel. Well, GSP told the story later, and that's a high kick he just threw. I threw the high kick, and it landed. And it kind of hurt him, so I said, okay, I'll just follow him to the ground. Well, then I followed him to the ground, and I passed the guard. Well, all those little steps kept him going. His coach just said, throw a high kick, and then we'll end the fight. The high kick landed, so GSP continued and was at least on top and able to keep going. Brilliant psychological move. If you ever coach guys in MMA or jiu-jitsu or anything like that, just give me one more. A lot of times they can do 5. Come on, give me one more minute, and then without knowing it, they're through a 3 or 5 minute round. So that's a great trick that his coach used that I learned from that interview, and I've learned that consistently. I want to quit. Okay, give me one more minute. Give me 30 more. And then you realize you have more energy than you thought you had. So beautiful pass to Mount. So now he's like, well, I'm sick. I don't feel well, but I got Mount. So he's going off on Wildman Denny here. Big punches. There was an armbar setup right there. I think a healthy GSP probably would have gotten that. Wildman Denny able to scramble out. A beautiful transition to the single leg. Never lets you off the hook. Never gives you a moment's rest. Any GSP fan knows that. Now, Wildman Denny is cut. His nose is bleeding, maybe broken. And this is where GSP sits up a little bit and lands some nice punches. But Wildman Denny, you can see that he's in it. He's not completely overwhelmed yet, but he has no answer in how to get back. This is a fledgling fight by one of the greatest of all time. I like fights like this because they show you how you can advance as a fighter. Like GSP right now, you can see the hallmarks that he's going to really refine later. I find that fascinating as a fight fan. To watch like Ali's fights as an amateur and stuff like that, where you go, oh, that's where that came from. He got really good at that later. I love watching stuff like that. But GSP, big, physical, always leaning forward, making opponents carry his weight. He's doing veteran stuff in his fourth fight. A lot of fighters make rookie mistakes at this point. You know, you're sick, you don't feel well, you're tired. What do? You make rookie mistakes. He's never letting Denny off the hook. And every time he takes him down, you see that half butterfly guard he's in now, he'll always go over that knee with his pressure pass. He just keeps it simple. Not doing anything special, just physical pressure the whole time. We don't yet see that kind of like dynamic, multi-level offense we saw especially when he won the title from Matt Hughes. We're not seeing that yet, but we're seeing those physical fundamentals. Once again, as soon as he sees a knee, he feels a knee, he passes. That frees up the right hand. Look at that, flat as can be. No space at all for Denny to get his guard back. And Denny right now just holding on. Last thing you want to do in bad position is hold on to your opponent. The metaphor you got to remember, it's like somebody breaking into your house and you lock the door behind him. You know, don't do that. You want to stay mobile in bad positions. And you see, Denny holding. It's got to be mobile at this point. Got to be moving. I saw Javier Vasquez in his corner. Wildman Denny, not a Millennia guy, but maybe, Javier Vasquez and him, they're from the same area roughly. So may have been helping him out. But look at that hip pressure from GSP. See, he can't really hold Denny down with that last explosion. Once again, I think that's not feeling well. Remember, he's running on fumes. He had told his corner, I'm going to throw that head kick, and then that's it. And he's basically going on guts because everything right now is going his way. If Wildman Denny had been able to get some separation from GSP and make him do things that were explosive or required timing or, give him time to think about how much he's suffering, might have won this fight. You don't know. But in these positions where you can let a guy go on automatic, which GSP on the ground, pass to the weak side, he's kind of on automatic at this point. Once again, going for looks like wrist control, thinking about an Americana. And check this out. Ground and pound with the right hand. It's about to start, and it's short, and it's accurate, and it's powerful. Right there. Always staying over that knee. You see that face exposed, bam, and he pops him right in the nose. Knee to the eye, and the fight is over. Now, if you look at the record, it says it was stopped via cut. I don't know what the stoppage is. I do not speak French. The commentary is in French. But I think Wildman Denny's nose was broken at this point. If you look at it, it's pretty badly swollen. He's got a cut under his eye as well. That could have exploded. I can't really see it from here. That's Javier Vasquez working on his eye. But this is the head kick that GSP said, I'm going to throw that, and that's it. There's that mini Superman punch that he got so good at later in his career. And that head kick was, I'm going to throw this, and then I'm done. Or his coach encouraged him, hey, look, just go out there and throw it. He wanted to quit in between rounds. And his coach said, just throw a head kick and it's over. Well, the head kick led to this, which led to this, which led to this, which led to the finish right here. Bang, look at that knee. Now, I can't see from there if the eye then exploded and a bunch of blood was coming out. That could have been the reason for the stoppage. A very sick GSP still has enough energy to do his celebration. But that was, according to an interview with GSP, the toughest fight of his career. And it tells you fights can be tough for a lot of different reasons. This wasn't a great opponent. This wasn't anywhere near one of the top guys he fought. It was just the circumstances of having the flu made this the toughest he had ever been through. Full disclosure, the interview I read might have been before the Johnny Hendricks fight. So maybe the Johnny Hendricks fight is ahead of this now. But you see the building blocks of somebody who'd be a really great champion. Maybe the greatest of all time. GSP Wildman Denny. Enjoy. If you like it, give it a subscribe, give it a like, give it a share, and I'll keep doing them. All right. Later, guys.